In this module, I will be concluding lecture on pre-task activities. The first module was of it on introduction to topic and task. The second module was on teaching talk as performance. The third module were context building activities. And the fourth module was on evaluating performance on speaking activities. So first, let's talk about introduction to topic and task. In it, teachers help students to understand the theme and objectives of the task. For example, brainstorming ideas with the class, using pictures, memes, and personal experiences to introduce the topic. Students may do the pre-task, for example, topic-based odd word out games. Teacher may highlight useful words and phrases, but would not teach new structure. Students can hear a recording of a parallel task being done, so long as this does not give away the solution to the problem. The task cycle is another part of the class. The task is done by students in pairs and groups and gives students a chance to use whatever language they already have to express themselves and say whatever they want to say. This may be in response to reading a text or hearing a recording. Teacher walks around and monitor, encouraging everyone to attempt at the communication in the target language. Planning is another task in the class. Planning prepares students for next stage, where they are asked to briefly report to the whole class how they did the task and what the outcome was. Students draft and rehearse what they want to say and write. Teachers go around and advise students on language, suggesting phrases and helping students to polish and correct their language. The emphasis is on clarity, organization, and accuracy as appropriate for the public presentation. Report is another part of the class. Teacher asks some pairs to report briefly to the whole class so everyone can compare findings or begin a survey. There must be a purpose for the others to listen. Sometimes only one or two groups report in full, other comments and add extra points. The class may take notes, teacher chairs, comments on the content of the group, reports and rephrases perhaps, but gives no public correction. The language focus analysis, another part of the class. Teacher sets some language-focused tasks based on the text students read. Examples include the following: find words and phrases related to the topic and text. Read the transcript. Find words ending in S and say. Practice is another part of the class where students do choral repetition of the phrases, identified and classified. Students play memory challenge games based on partially erased example or using lists already on the blackboard for the progressive deletion. Sentence completion, base sentence set for one theme for another. Matching the past tense verb jumbled with the subject or object that they had in the text. The second module of this lecture was on teaching talk as performance. Teaching talk as performance requires a different teaching strategies. Initially, talk as performance need to be prepared for and scaffolded in much the same way as written text. And many teaching strategies used to make understanding of the written text accessible can be applied to the formal uses of a spoken language. This approach involves providing examples or models of speeches or presentations, stories, etc. through video or through audio recording and written example. Questions such as the following can guide this process. What is the speaker purpose? Who is the audience? What kind of information does the audience expect? How does the talk begin, develop, and end? What moves and stages are involved? Is any special languages used? Students then work jointly on planning their own text, which then presented to the whole class. The third module of the lecture was on context building activities. There were 4 phases in it. Phase 1 was on building the context. In this stage, students are introduced to a social context of an authentic model of a text type being studied. Students explore features of a general cultural context in which text type is used and the social purpose of the text types achieved. In this stage, students are exploring the immediate context of situation by investigating the register of a model text, then presenting the context through pictures, audio visuals, materials, realia, excursions, field trips, guest speakers, etc. Phase 2 was on modeling and deconstructing the text. In this stage, students investigate the structural pattern and language features of the model. Students compare the model with other examples of the same text type. According to Fees and Joyce, modeling and deconstruction are undertaken at both the whole text, the close, and expression levels. It is at this stage that many traditional ESL language teaching activities come into their own. Phase 3. Phase 3 was on joint construction of the text. In this stage, students begin to contribute to the construction of a whole example of a text type. The teacher gradually reduces the contribution to the text construction as the students move closer to being able to control the text type independently. Now, phase 4 was independent construction of the text. In this stage, students work independently with the text. They do independent construction of activities, include listening tasks, for example, comprehension activities in response to live or recorded material such as performing a task, sequencing pictures, numbering, ticking, or underlying materials on a worksheet, and answering the question. They also do listening and speaking tasks, for example, role plays and simulated or authentic dialogue. The 4th module of this lecture was on evaluating performance on speaking activities. This was the 3rd issue involved in planning speaking activity, is determining the expected level of performance on a speaking task and the criteria that will be used to assess students' performance. For any activity we use in class, whether it be 1 to 6 to develop proficiency in using talk as interaction, talk as transaction, or talk as performance, we need to consider what successful completion of the activity involves. Is accuracy of pronunciation and grammar important? Is each participant expected to speak for about the same amount of time? Is it acceptable if the speaker uses many long pauses and repetition? If a speaker contribution to a discussion is off the topic, does it matter